Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Top Voice Tuesday. Very excited to have Chad Johnson here with us. I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself in a moment, but as our normal intros, wanted to just share that if you've missed any past episodes, all of these episodes are hosted on my YouTube channel, Michael J. Lopez 9. You can watch the whole thing front to back with timestamps and show notes and all the good stuff. And every week we have a weekly newsletter summary called Friday Focus, where it's all about giving summaries of what we're talking about and taking themes, some insights from my book Change. So please go to my website, michaeljlopez.coach, to sign up for that. So we're excited to have everyone here. And for those of you dialing in, please let us know where you're coming in from in the chat. We take questions along the way. So this week's episode, really, really excited to talk to Chad about why cold outreach is dying. And I think it's such an interesting time to be in the world of sales. Chad is the expert on that. But we're going to dive into this conversation in the world of digital and AI experience of what is cold outreach and what does that look like. So, Chad, why don't you give us an introduction and tell us how you got to the top of the Top Voice Mountain?
Well, I don't know if I'm at the top of the mountain yet, Michael, but thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, definitely. What I did was, after 20 years of being in B2B sales in corporate America and being a sales leader in corporate America, I developed what I call the Create sales method. And it is a means by which, we are able to make better connections with our potential buyers and give them more incentive and reason to speak to us versus, the traditional cold calling. And so what I decided is, I'm going to take this and see how many sales organizations and how many salespeople I can help along the way because it was very successful. It is still very successful to this day, and I'm growing, helping companies grow their sales as well as individual salespeople on a regular basis, and that's what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I remember when we first met, you sort of shared that bit of that methodology and sort of what you do. And I think there's a lot of people in the sales space that are sales coaches. We're going to have another one on next week to talk about another angle on this conversation. So share a little more about your conversation and sort of your journey from a LinkedIn perspective, and how do you use the platform? You mentioned you're a top voice. So kind of what's your style and approach on LinkedIn engagement, and kind of how did you get here?
Yeah, so I mean, really, the style is just first of all, I started posting content regularly. I put out a post every day, and I made sure to engage with anybody that commented or liked or shared it, and make sure to give those accreditations to and give attention to those people, and then start conversations in the DMs. But really that's what it's all about. I just literally started posting content, being relative, watching to what people asked me, the types of questions they asked me, what were the things they wanted to learn more about, hear more about. And then I started posting content about that. I really fed off of my audience. And along the way, in doing this, after, probably about a year or two, LinkedIn reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to be one of our top voices." And I have been now for last year and this year. So 24 and 25, I'm considered one of their top voices. And primarily, the journey is be out there, be authentic, engage with your audience, grow your following, nurture them, give them real information, give them free things that help them
Yeah.
better themselves in their job. So,
I somebody said this to me the other day, maybe it was a while ago, but so many people on LinkedIn are trying to tell you something so they can sell you something.
yep.
And I thought it was such a great kind of anecdote for this idea that if you're not waiting for the setup, right? If every outreach is just because you're trying to connect, it's a much more authentic interaction. And I think your story sort of sends that message. We got a few folks online: Tim, Teen, Jeremy Grandstaff, Yvette. Really, thanks for joining. Some folks from all over. So please put chats in there, and we'll take questions. So let's dive in, Chad. What is the topic of this conversation is about cold outreach, but let's define what cold outreach means today. It used to literally be a phone call, right?
Yeah.
What is cold outreach today?
Yeah, cold outreach today is really about meeting your customers, your potential customers, where they absorb information. It's really about being more of a really highly educated tour guide to help them reach the decision to buy versus selling them something. You're giving them enough data, you're giving them enough pathways to learn about your solution, what you do, how you do things, how you've helped others, the problems you solve, the people you work best with. And really, it's all about giving. You're giving up free information, free data. And people say, well, aren't you giving away everything that, people would hire you to do? And I'm like, well, sure, but people still need help in how to facilitate it and how to you actually put it into practice and grow it and the steps that are involved in it. You're talking about some high level things, but you're also giving away free actionable tips that people can put to use right now with little or no experience, and it'll make a benefit for them. It's not about cold calling or emailing anymore because people really aren't engaging with that. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So
Yeah, so let's talk about those. And we talked about, you've kind of given us the two sides of the coin of this idea of maybe how cold outreach is being redefined. The What's not working? Let's start with that. And what doesn't work in the cold outreach experience? Is it just the cold email? Is it the DM? Is it literally a phone call? Do we still do that? I mean, I don't ever answer a phone number that I don't recognize. So what part of the cold outreach experience is going away or dying or not working?
yeah, contact without context is really what it comes down to. People, when they receive a cold call, they don't know you. They probably never interacted with you. They don't know what you're trying to offer them, push them for, get time to discuss with them, and they're gun shy. They're also weary. They're tired of it. We've been doing this for decades in the B2B space. Templated emails that bring no value and scream, "Oh, I just want to sell you something," and cold calls with elevator pitches that are nothing more than, a 30-second, brief commercial about, "We know you have problems and we solve problems, and I would like to talk for 15 minutes with you about your problems and why my product is so great." No one cares.
Yeah.
They want to know what it does for them. And that's where the difference is. They have no benefit. There's no benefit to them having that conversation. There's no value in it. And that's why the digital realm is so popular. And that's why the new cold outreach is really having a solid online presence and being where your potential customers consume that information when they're looking to solve a problem or to generate interest in solving those problems they have. Give them reasons to do it.
Yeah. What a great phrase of contact without context.
Mhm.
That is a great reminder, I think, to all of us. Mark Fuentes was on, I think 2 weeks ago, and he made a comment about it's better to be sort of first to mind than first to market, and this idea that it's got to be more of a pull experience. But so you shared some stats with me as we were preparing for this conversation that I thought put this into context of what happens when a sales call, maybe just call it a sales outreach, occurs. What is the walk us through the stats that I just thought were staggering about how people are using LinkedIn to kind of qualify you before they've even met you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. LinkedIn is kind of your verification piece, right? It's your trust builder, your authority builder. But more importantly, it's even an initial contact generator because 75% of B2B buyers right now, and you can look this up online, don't take my word for it, numerous sources for this, but 75% of B2B buyers, when they receive a cold outreach from a salesperson, if it's something they feel they might be interested in, they go look at their profile on LinkedIn. And 42% of those 75% of buyers say that if you don't have a decent LinkedIn profile, they're not even going to give you the conversation. They're not going to interact with you at all because your profile isn't sufficient. And so that's why, you hear myself and so many other people going, your LinkedIn profile is so important. But what that breaks down into total numbers, if you look at that, that means that 31.5%, almost one third of all B2B buyers today, they're going to LinkedIn to check you out when you reach out to them before they ever have a conversation with you. And you risk losing a third of your addressable market by not having a solid presence on LinkedIn. How scary is that?
Yeah. 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 I guess maybe in the old days we used to use the phone book and you had an ad for something, but let's be honest about this because I think this is interesting. And please do, folks online, leave a question, drop an insight. We'll be sure to address it. But it has to. People wouldn't do it if it didn't work.
Hey, everything works sometimes. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Right.
Here's the thing though. Right now, I mean, cold calling stats are down to 1 to 2% that you'll find a qualified lead with 100 cold conversations. Now, notice I said cold conversations, not cold calls, because it may take you 500 calls or 1,000 calls to have those 100 conversations. And you're down to a 1 to 2% chance of finding a qualified lead, not a sale. By way of comparison, you have a 4.5% chance of being dealt blackjack in a casino on any given hand. So you've got better odds of getting dealt blackjack than you do finding a lead versus cold calling these days. And emailing is
Wow.
about running about 4%. So, it's got a little better stat if you have a good message because there's no pressure to it. There's not somebody on the other end of the phone going, "Give me time on your calendar. Hey, giving you my elevator pitch." It's more informative. So that's why it has a better approach. And then there's LinkedIn, where you're actually going out there and you're putting out content and you're sharing your experiences, your knowledge. That is having a 30 to 40% lead generation rate for messages when you engage the audience that is responding to your posts. That's huge. And it also breaks through that. I mean, we've all seen those ups and downs in your prospecting, the normal cycle throughout the year. It's consistent. People are always on LinkedIn every day, and it's a new set of buyers month to month, week to week, year to year, and you constantly have that flow of solid leads coming into your pipeline. So you're never in those down, drained, empty times, right?
Right, right. We talked about this before. This idea everything works sometimes is such a great reminder that, being lucky is not the same as being good, right?
Right.
I think one of my favorite phrases, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again.
Sure.
4% is what you have. You're basically gambling.
Yeah.
You are basically gambling. However, there's another angle to this, which is interesting, which is this idea that AI makes it a lot easier for us to go gamble, right? I don't have to use a lot of effort to set up a script and let that script run over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
has AI made this better or has it made it worse?
That's really a both statement. That's really a both answer. It's made it better and worse. It's made it worse from the content or the context of organizations that are trying to use it to outrun the numbers. They realize that the number of responses are very low, so they figure, oh, we'll just ramp up the numbers. It's a numbers game, which it's
Right.
not. Sales has gone back to being a skill game for sure by far, and a connection and relationship game imperatively. Where it is working, where AI is helping organizations, is if they're using it to gather insights, if they're using it to watch what their buyers are interested in, what their buyers are struggling with, finding more real data about who their audience is, and then engaging them in a manner that meets, hey, we're here to meet your needs. We're here to help you address your problems. If we happen to do business, great. But nonetheless, we're going to share these insights with you. That sort of resonates so much better with buyers and makes them choose you. It's like, hey, you're not trying to peddle me anything, you're informing me. And if I choose to buy, great. And that's what they want. It's what they need.
Yeah. It's a great reminder. And, Mark and I, we talked about this a couple weeks ago that we don't create demand. We find people that are ready to transact in a situation that fits with how we help them, and we give them information about who we are and how we help. It's much more of a pull and be available kind of experience, um, which I think is so interesting. But so if everything works sometimes, and it's all about contact without connection, and AI makes this easier, those are big threads for why cold outreach is dying. And we're always going to see part of this experience, people that are just playing the numbers game, that are throwing out the net. It's all about volume. It's 100 contacts a day and 200 conversations a month. And, you do the math and all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But you said at the beginning, which I think is so interesting, what it's being replaced with. So what is this conversation of cold outreach? You sort of summarized at the beginning, but I'd love to go back to that. What are salespeople replacing this with? What is the right way to go going forward?
The right way to go is to build authentic connections and relationships based on understanding and knowledge sharing. Really, what it is the top salespeople today, they don't even look like salespeople anymore. They look like highly educated tour guides. They literally find people just through general cultivation of information online, and they're asking them questions. Hey, what do you need? What problems are you facing? And they share with them, look, have you looked at it this way? Maybe the problem's further reaching than you thought it was. Maybe it's not, but here's another way to look at it. And they're uncovering those latent pains and they're getting people off the sidelines. What your content does and what your ability to reach buyers on LinkedIn does is it takes the people that are on the sidelines right now, not actively looking to solve a problem that they know they have, and turns them into people who are actively interested in solving that problem. And you're generating that curiosity and interest through that content and building that relationship and providing them the resources and tools along the way that are necessary to do that. That's where the top salespeople are winning right now. I mean, and it's not a new thing. Everybody knows in their sales organization. You look at the top sales rep; they're not meeting the call metrics. They're not sending the same emails that everybody else is because they're focused on building relationships, real, genuine relationships that not only will they sell to those people that they're building relationships with, they will build an immense referral pipeline from those relationships because they did it the right way. They're trusted. They do a good job. They bring a good solution and then they get passed on to their friends. And that's how it exponentially grows. You can't get that. That's the one thing you cannot scale cold calling. You make a cold call, you send a cold email, it's a one-to-one proposition. You put out good, relevant content on LinkedIn, that one post can reach hundreds, maybe even 1,000 of your potential buyers in a single day. You cannot scale cold outreach that way. That's the other end of the coin. And that's the other reason it's so effective is its scalability.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I think for the average person who's, well, maybe I don't want to say the average person, for the salesperson who's taking more of a build it, if you build it, they will come kind of an approach. How do you deal with the uncertainty and the anxiety or the unknowing part of uh, waiting for someone to call back? Because that's the thing, outreach, uh, the volume play gives us a sense of movement, a sense of direction. I'm doing things, I'm turning the crank. I'm hitting my numbers. People just aren't buying, whatever the kind of story is there. How do you deal with the waiting around for the phone to ring if you're the one just putting out good stories, good content, and that sort of thing?
Yes, so you're not waiting for the phone to ring. I mean, people look at LinkedIn as a straight inbound sales stream, and that's not what it is. It's an outbound sales stream too. The minute people begin engaging with your posts and liking them and commenting on them or asking you questions, they're signaling to you, okay, I want more. I want more information. You've caught my attention. I'm interested. Now it's about going into those DMs and starting a conversation. Now, notice I said starting a conversation, not sending them your elevator pitch, not begging them for 15 minutes on the calendar. That's coming from a position of weakness. You come from a position of strength. You commented on my post about this. Are you currently experiencing any problems with that? Or did you have any questions about my post for clarification? I just want to make sure that I'm giving you everything you need. Now you're focusing the message all on them. It's not about a transaction. It's not about your solution or what you're selling. It's about them, their problems, and becoming a real partner with them. That's the outbound side of LinkedIn. And that happens with every day, every post that comes out. I personally send 10, 15 messages a day to people that are engaging with my posts. And I give them that sort of conversation starter. And believe me, once they respond and they respond to that through the
Yeah.
DMs, it's very easy to move them then to a live call, which goes
Yeah.
from there.
Do we have a question from Jeremy in the chat here? I'm going to read it to folks. And Jeremy's a great guy. We've connected before, and I appreciate his quip against Mike Blind Squirrel. So please take a look at that. It's pretty funny. But and Jeremy's a wonderful transformational leader. His question is, right now in my current role, I sell digital accessibility services. He happens to be visually impaired. I struggle with putting out the right content and balancing not being seen as just a blind guy complaining? Any impact on the type of content that might help me move the needle? Asking because I only have people contacting me to sell me, never to buy. And that's the thing I think you're talking about is if someone's reaching out on LinkedIn, our first reaction is, what do you want? Right.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so any insights on Jeremy's question there?
Yeah, a couple things. So, Jeremy, I'm not familiar with your content. I don't know what you post on a regular basis, but I will tell you here's the things that move the needle. Talk about the problems you know people have, talk about their pain points, talk about the issues that they're facing every day, and how you solve them or how you have solved them for others. Because what that does is it starts building social proof. It's like bringing the receipts. Everybody wants to see the receipts. How do you benefit people? And what you need to do is you need to make your content about how you benefit people, not what you sell or what you do. It's about the benefits that you bring to them, how you improve their work life, their quality, whatever the case may be. That's what you need to talk about. You probably also, and I don't know this for a fact, again, I'm not familiar with your content, you probably need to be doing things more broadly as far as maybe with video, live events, newsletters, things like that on LinkedIn. They're going to move the needle. Just posting content by itself isn't going to drive buyers to your DMs. It's the engagement and the questions and the types of content that you're putting out. I promise I will go take a look at it, Jeremy, and I will reach to you on LinkedIn, and I'll give you a better answer there.
Love that. Thank you, Chad. That's super generous, super helpful. You said something to me as we were talking about this reaching out. You said something to me yesterday when we were connecting that I think is so relatable, right? Which is these days people pay not to see commercials, right? This idea that
Yeah.
you subscribe to whatever streaming service, you can take the cheap version and get a commercial, or you can pay the premium to not see commercials. And I think that is such a good reminder to us that
Hmm.
that don't be a commercial, right? Be somebody that is
Right.
providing value. Focus on the content, right? I'm trying to watch my Netflix show and I don't want to see the commercial. I want to see the story that you're telling me. And you made another comment in there I think was really, really talk about the benefits. And I saw a quote yesterday that I did not come up with, and I won't get it exactly right, but it said that your purpose is not what you do. Your purpose is what happens to in others when you do what you do, right? And I
That's
thought
right.
that was so
Yes.
good. I just really love this idea. My purpose, quite simply, is to help individuals, teams, and organizations transform. How I do that
Hmm.
is kind of my purpose, but what really happens is the change that others experience when I support them on their journey. And so it's just such a great reminder of this idea that, don't be a commercial. Be the story, be the content, be the person that's giving something of value in that experience. And I guess I'll share another quote slash cliche, which I always think is sort of interesting because I've heard people say, well, if I give it away for free, then what value am I? And I heard this from someone else, and they said, just because you give somebody else a basketball doesn't make them Michael Jordan, right? Or LeBron James. The the tool has to be matched with the skill in a way that actually so trust in your skill and what you do to be able to solve that problem. And if it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit, and you've got to be willing to say that as well. Just a comment back from Jeremy to thank you for that answer, which I thought was great. Um, so we're kind of coming to the glide path here, Chad. I want to talk about a couple things and make sure that we're summarizing for folks what is a really in-depth conversation. I have one last question before we get to kind of the three things to take away from the call. Um, this term salesperson, there's kind of this. Sometimes it gets a bad rap, right? Like this idea of
Hmm.
sales sort of feels icky, cold outreach. What do you want? How is this profession redesigning itself? Is it redesigning itself? Is it going through a change, or is it really just a new way of doing what we should have always been doing in the first place?
You know, what it is it's going back to the principles of what we should always do and what we should have always been doing in the first place. And we've known it and we've said the platitudes about it for years. People buy from people, they don't buy from companies, they don't buy brands, all these other things that we've heard over time. And what's really happening is we're going back to doing what we should have done. We're getting back to the connection level. We're getting back to being an authentic human being, discussing problems, benefits, solutions that we provide, things like that. But being more of a, like I said, I mean, a tour guide, a partner. It's like, hey, I'm going to expose you to information. You're going to realize that it's factual. You may see that it's something you're dealing with every day, and I'm going to share with you how I go around these problems, how I work through these problems with other people, how I can work through these problems with you. I'm going to give you some free tips along the way that even if we never do business together, hey, I hope these help your life. And you're going to guide people in that manner. We're going back to just being true, authentic human beings, but there's a main reason for that. Two things occurred over the past couple of years. Obviously, we know the
Right.
pandemic. What that really did was it did two things. It took the last of the, say, the Gen Xers, definitely the boomers, but a lot of the Gen Xers that were in procurement and buying roles in corporate America, they either matriculated or left corporate America, started their own businesses, did something else. I'm
So am
one of
I.
them. And yeah, and or no matter what you look at it, the people that replaced them are millennials, which is great. It's amazing. Millennials are great. So are the Gen Zers. But the problem is for salespeople is that millennials are the first digital
Yeah.
natives. They weren't the cold call takers. They never were in a time when there wasn't an internet,
Right.
where there wasn't everything at their fingertips. So if you're not putting yourself in their purview where they are, because almost 80% of all B2B buying positions are now held by millennials. You're not reaching them. They're not going to answer a call. They're not going to answer your spam email. They're going to skip it, block you, put you in their spam filter, all that other good stuff, because that's not how they're ingesting
Yeah,
information.
yeah. It's such a great reminder of how things have changed. But to your point about returning to the foundational principles that have really been core to what we do as a social species, right? I talk about this in my book,
Yeah.
right? We are social interaction is the most one of the singularly most biologically rewarding behaviors we can engage in, and you
Yep.
can corrupt that by having too much intention. I'm not here to build with you. I'm here to get something from you. I've seen some of these sales strategies built around neuro linguistic processing, and make yourself in high demand, seem uninterested, get to, and I feel like, God, you're just manipulating somebody into doing something that they don't
Yeah.
really want to do, and it makes me, as somebody who knows a little bit about the neuroscience of behavior, I'm like, it's
Yep.
sort of like the Force in Star Wars. It's the same power, but you can use
Yep.
it for good or you can use it for evil. So,
Yep.
I just feel like
And
it's, yeah,
well, and people sniff it
yeah,
out so quickly. In authenticity, just that sort of, oh, I'm cheesy sales. That no, they sniff it out so quick. You have to be
yeah,
authentic. That's
yeah.
the key. We have to be
So that's
authentic.
a great tee up for in the last question here, Chad, before you get your bonus. We've talked about a lot. What are the three things you want people to take away from this conversation about the changes that we're experiencing in sales and why cold outreach is dying and what it should be replaced with?
Yeah, I'll label three really quick. Do the things do the things that break through the know, like, and trust barrier, and that's not cold calling. That's making sure that you have a good online presence, you have a good profile on LinkedIn, that you're sharing good information. Be consistent and authentic. Again, like we just talked about, people can smell out inauthenticity very quickly. It's a quick turnoff, and you have to know when to ask for the conversation. Again, there is a very strong outbound side to LinkedIn, and you need to know when the right time is, when you have established enough rapport to go, we need to have a real chat. Let's get on, let's get offline, let's get on Zoom, let's meet in person, whatever the case may be, and take them offline and into the
Yeah.
real world.
And I think, just coming from the world of behavior and behavior change and what I do, what I love about this story is it's about shifting from the perspective of, I'm trying to get something from you, as opposed to what we should be doing, which is I'm trying to build something with you. I'm focusing on the process of building connections and relationships and insights and trust. And when I do that, the outcomes will happen, but I'm not just so focused on the outcome that I make you feel icky in the process of just trying to be a good human together. And so I just love that, right? So to
Yeah.
do the things that break the no like trust barrier, such a great reminder. Be consistent, be authentic, and know when to ask, right? At the end of the day, you still need to know, hey, is there something I can help you with? Can we get together and talk about this in person? I'm happy to help, but it's not,
Yeah.
I have something to sell. It's how can I help you, right? And that
Yeah.
really is a different conversation.
Yeah. Because you've earned the conversation at that point in time. You didn't
You've
force it on
earned the
somebody.
conversation. What a great reminder. So, Chad, this has been great. I want to give you a chance. As you know, the tradition that I've stole from the Diary of a CEO is to have a question from the last guest to the next guest, and it's a fun way to wrap things up. So, your question before we sign off is: consider for a moment that time will stand still for 24 hours. The entire planet, people, you're the only one that can do anything. You can go anywhere, do anything, uh, experience anything you want. Of course, you got to do that by yourself. Where would you go and why? And what would you do with your 24 hours of suspended animation?
Wow. Talk about an existential question, out of left field. What would I do with my 24 hours and where would I go? First of all, I would probably go and see how many of the secret libraries that exist that I can't normally get into so I can get all of that information and data. I love learning. That's one of my favorite things to do, and see if there's any insights or anything that I can gain to help save
I love
humanity.
that.
um, and the second would be to learn a little bit more about myself, because you think about it, if nobody is doing anything but me and I'm all alone, it's a really good time to introspect and go, how can I interact with people better? How can I make their lives richer? And I think I would take it that 24 hours of downtime to just really learn and do some of those things that I don't get to do in
Yeah,
everyday life.
it's great. It's a great
Mm.
question. It's one that we could probably spend a whole episode on. So, Chad, I just want to say thank you for your time. This has been an amazing conversation. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with, an offer to them?
Sure, absolutely. To the first 10 people from now that DM me on LinkedIn, if you want, I will review your profile for free. I'll take a look at helping you get a solid profile on LinkedIn. I'll give you my recommendations. I'll even send you back a video about it. And I hope that we connect as well. And also, a couple of things. You please, everybody should connect with me and reach out to me on LinkedIn. Ask me any questions. And I'm thinking there was one other thing that I was thinking about, but I'm forgetting it at the moment. Michael, did I mention it to you yesterday?
You were talking, well, we just talked about you have a book coming as well. So that may be something to be
Yeah,
on the lookout
dude.
for.
That's right. Over the next couple of months, look for my book. It's called Content is the New Cold Call. And I look forward to you being able to get that on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that in the future. Supposed to have been out already, but unfortunately things happen, so pushed it back a little bit. So over the next couple of months, it should be coming out. Thanks for having me on the show, Michael. I've really enjoyed
Thank
this.
you so much. Again, please go to YouTube, Michael J. Lopez 9, to subscribe to see all the past episodes, and to my website, michaeljlopez.coach, to get the newsletter. I put extra insights in there from my book Change. I'll tie it into the conversation, as well as some other resources. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.